Alright, so now we're in week 4 of our superhero series. This one's going to be titled God Looks at the Heart. And this is going to be based off pretty much my favorite character of the entire Marvel universe, Captain America. I don't think there's any better, like, just hero. Like, when you say the word hero, like, immediately to me I think Captain America, because he's just awesome. But I want to ask you guys, like, think about it for a couple seconds. When you hear the word hero, what comes to your mind? Is it like powerful, strong, courageous, brave? Like what attributes do you think of when you think of the word hero? And some of us may think of just like all the superheroes, like whether it's Marvel or whatever. Some people may think of like firefighters. But to you, like, what does it mean to be a hero? And then think about like what does God think a hero is? Like, what would he pick as like, what does he look for in a hero? And it really, I think, comes down to their heart. God always looks at the heart. He doesn't judge a person by their outward appearance. He doesn't judge by like what we think. Like, I look at Captain America and I'm like, oh, he's like super strong, he's fast, he's always like running into battle. But God looks at like, all right, where is your heart? Where is your faith? And then I will use that. And I think that is just so like, it's so moving to just know that anybody can be used as long as your heart and your faith are in the right place. And I want to go over just one quick story. I say quick, it's going to be a little long, but that's all right. I want to go over David. Many of you know David and Goliath, but what I didn't really realize was I thought David was just already out there on the battlefield. But there's a bit of a backstory to that, and I think it's very interesting on how God picks David and then his future, like after that battle. So his story kind of starts in 1 Samuel 16. Samuel was a prophet of the Lord and was sent to anoint the next king of Israel. Samuel was sent to Bethlehem to find a man named Jesse. And it was one of Jesse's sons that was supposed to be anointed to be the next king. When Samuel arrived, he sought for Jesse, and Jesse brought his sons. First, he brought his son Eliab, his oldest. And Samuel looked at him and he was like, oh yeah, that's my dude. Like, he's huge, he's strong, he looks good, like, he's definitely going to be the next king. And I think it's so interesting that like even Samuel, like a prophet of the Lord, was like looking at this dude like, oh yeah, Lord, that's definitely the dude, right? That's definitely the dude. But Lord replies to Samuel in 1 16:7. He said, the Lord says to Samuel, don't judge by his appearance. He's talking about Eliab. Don't judge by his appearance or height, for I have rejected him. The Lord doesn't see things the way you see them. People judge by outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. So isn't that just, I mean, we can all make that assumption that like we see this big, strong dude, like, oh, he's got to be a hero. But what if he's got a corrupt heart? Like, by your appearance, we can't tell that, but the Lord can. And so the Lord can look at you and know that your heart's not in the right place and say, nope, you're not quite the right guy, even though we may think so. Later in verse 10 of that same chapter, it tells us that Jesse had presented all 7 of his sons to Samuel, and none were chosen. The Lord said no to each of those 7 sons. But Samuel, knowing that Jesse had a son that was supposed to be anointed king, goes back to Jesse and asks, do you have any other sons? Like, it was supposed to be one of your sons. Like, what's happening? The Lord said no. Like, there's got to be someone else. And Jesse says, well, I have my youngest. Like, David's out in the back feeding the sheep. Like, why would you want to talk to him? He's just a little guy. Like, he's the runt of the litter. But it was David. David was the one that was supposed to be anointed to become the next king of Israel. And isn't that so interesting? Like, when I think of like Captain America, it's easy to see like the big hero with the shield running into battle, but kind of forget he began as Steve Rogers. Just like this scrawny little kid in Brooklyn, like just doing his thing, and then when he saw trouble, he was still going out there. Like that guy in the movie theater in the first Captain America movie, he starts like yelling at the movie theater, and he's like, "Hey man, like, why don't you just let the movie play?" And he's like, "All right, let's take it outside." And you got scrawny Steve Rogers like trying to stand up to this big bully, but it was in his heart. Like, he had the right heart to stop a bully, even though he didn't have the strength physically. He had the right heart, and I think that was just so moving to like see that even the scrawny guy later gets picked. Like, he ends up joining the army, ends up training, you know, with all these other big brawny dudes in the army, and even the general's like, "Oh yeah, that big brawny dude, that's definitely my guy. Like, he's gonna be the next super soldier." And just like the Lord said, no, that's not it. That Dr. Erskine for the first Captain America movie was saying, "No, I don't want the big bully. I want the little kid with the good heart, because the good heart will make a good hero, not just strength." And I think that is just so powerful. Like, it just, it boggles my mind. And I think there's a lot of other characteristics about Steve Rogers that made him like the perfect super soldier. And later in the movie Avengers, the first one, there's a scene where Thor like swoops in and takes Loki out, and they jump out of the Quinjet, and Captain America's just like, "All right, well, I gotta go get him. Like, he stole my guy." And Black Widow turns to Captain America and is like, "I don't know if you want to do that. These guys are pretty much gods." And Captain America turns and goes, "Well, there's only one God, ma'am, and I'm pretty sure they don't dress like that." And I think that was so funny, but it's like a quick little funny one-liner. But then you realize Captain America was a Christian. Like, he believed in God. He had godly attributes about him, and I think that's what makes him the perfect hero. And it's just, it blows my mind. And then like later going back to the first Avengers, or the first Captain America movie, when he's rescuing all those prisoners of war, and he's trying to find his buddy Bucky. Like, that was his best friend. He got captured with all these other prisoners of war, and he goes into this camp, saves all these prisoners, like tons of them, and he's like, "I still can't find my buddy Bucky. Like, where is he?" And one guy in the camp says like, "Hey, there was a scientist dude that was doing stuff like down this hall," and he's like, "Well, that's where I gotta go." And all the big group of prisoners were like, "Aren't you gonna come with us? Like, we need help too." And he's like, "No, I gotta go back for the one." And isn't it just like the Lord, that even though he has 99 sheep, he goes back for the one that ran off, that was still gone from the flock? And I think that is just so powerful, that these little things that we don't quite recognize in these movies, like, they can still be about the Lord and have these attributes, these things that the Lord can show us and that we can use and that can speak into our lives. And what's interesting is, just like David, when David went out to go face Goliath, when Steve Rogers was being picked for the super soldier program, both of them refused to see themselves as any less than what God created them to be. And I just think that's something that we need to take away. Like, God created me exactly who I am, exactly how I'm supposed to be, for a specific reason. And I'm not going to let one thing stop me from doing what God called me to be. And that was week 4.